Day 9.
9. Okay, thank you. I'm happy you
Day
did
9,
the
yeah.
addition for me.
Well, yesterday was 8.
Even though I said 6, that's why.
Yeah, well, that's why I
so
had
in my
to-
head I had it as
had
6.
to
So I was
step
gonna
in.
say 7, and then you
Right.
corrected me. So day 9.
Day 9. All right.
I'm very tired today.
I can tell.
In case anyone's wondering.
We gotta.
I'll bring it.
I know
I'm
you
just
always
saying.
do. It's
I know.
playoff time,
All
you know.
All right,
All right.
Hey, hello. It is the Go Birds podcast presented by the Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app. Bring on the Rams, baby. Let's freaking go, buddy.
So,
I stayed up to watch it. A late night for your boy. Let's go.
although ironically, ended it quickly.
I know. I could have went to bed when it was 10-0 and missed nothing, but you know.
So
I stayed up.
let me just say this.
No big deal. Yeah, I do it for it's not just for me. It's for everyone.
Well,
you know?
you've also kind of lucked out with the playoff times. Like they got 3 o'clock
buddy,
on
tell
Sunday.
me about it. Yes,
so
I have done a fist
everything's
bump
breaking
each
your
time.
way.
Yes.
I cannot believe they got the Rams.
Unbelievable.
Like while we
It's
could
so
all sit here
crazy.
and go, you know, well, Minnesota's a fraud. Who knows? Just for everything to break their way, and the fact that the only thing standing between them and the NFC Championship game is the Rams. It's the best possible outcome by far. And I decided this last night. I'm not doing the whole, well,
No, they're gonna whoop the Rams.
They are going to.
I tweeted it during the game. I said the Eagles are gonna beat the Rams. I never tweet declarative stuff. Like that's not my thing. Like I just don't.
I did the same thing.
I'm not a big I'm not a big tweeter. Period.
Right.
I was like, they're gonna beat this team. Like,
I think
I'll
they're
say
definitely
it.
gonna.
I'm not afraid to say it.
And we'll obviously do the daily pod every week, and we'll break down all the matchups.
Day 9, by the way.
Day 9, exactly.
Shout out to day 9 of the daily pod.
Shout out to day 8 not being day 6.
Yes, it's not. Yes, it's not day 7. It's day 9.
Correct.
Day 7 weekday. Day 9 total.
We'll do all week, and I'll do it on the early morning daily pod where we break down. Like we'll do all that, and we'll break it down, and there are some things the Rams do well, but don't get it twisted. The Eagles are in a different class than the Rams. This is not the Packers. The Packers were at least a legitimate, like tough, good football team. The Rams are a finesse, soft football team. That's really
their defense is all right.
Their
defense doesn't play soft. Like they're young and they're inexperienced, but they play pretty tough to defense.
So the defense is 26 in the league.
I know, but they've been much better the last.
I agree. They have been.
They have a lot of young guys who've kind of played themselves into it and stuff.
They have a good defensive line for sure. I'm not impressed with their back 7. I agree their front 4 is good. That is the strength of the team. Like then you can go to the receivers, which are good. But like, man, you think what you think the Rams are not what they are. When I was last night, thankfully it ended pretty quickly, so I was able to do my research for like the whole 3 quarters. And like the Rams have scored over 30 points this year twice, 2 times. They've held their defense. While I agree with you, soft was probably. I just think the Eagles are such a tougher team.
Oh,
maybe what I should
totally
have said.
Agree, yeah.
Not that the Rams are soft, but the Eagles are the clear tougher team among the two. Their defense has held an opponent under 20 points this year, I think 5 times. The Eagles have done it 12. Like,
is that including last night or no?
No, this is just regular season. So, like, the difference between these teams is not close. Like the Packers, we could legitimately make a case. You know what? The Packers are pretty good. Like they won. What did they end up winning? 13 games or whatever it was.
11.
Oh, okay, 11 games. Sorry, 11. The Packers won 11 games. Like they had been to the play. I am so confident about this matchup.
Well, good. It's nice to have you back. You were all scared last week.
And I think rightfully so. And they ended
up
by
double digits. They won by 2 more points than I predicted with a double digit. So no big deal.
That's the other thing I was thinking this morning is the line is 5.5.
Yeah,
I think that's low, but like the line last week we thought was a bit surprising, and they almost tripled it. So maybe the 5.5 points. You could argue it should. I think it'll go up. I bet it'll end up being closer to 7. But I mean, I think that's like
it's cover. They're gonna cover again. Here's the thing. I think the.
I don't want to be overly confident.
Well, and it's funny because I went into last night saying I want to play the Rams, and granted, it was one night, one game, but pretty quickly in that game, I was like, I'd actually think I'd rather play the Vikings. Like Sam Darnold, like nice year, all that, like not ready for it, not good enough.
And they had no juice.
2 weeks in a row, like that guy is like, I think Vic Fangio and this Eagles defense against Sam Darnold, I think they crushed that guy. So like, as the game went on, I was like, you know what? I think the fact that it's just, I think honestly, and this is a classic Eliot Shorr-Parks thing, but I think like at the end of the day, it's who do I want to play more? it comes down to, I think, like, Stafford's so much better than Darnold that I would rather play the Vikings.
Agreed.
But outside of that, like, you should be incredibly confident going into this game. I think also, like, one thing we talk about a lot, like, I'm a big emotion guy. I'm big on, kind of the galvanizing forces and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think last night we also underrated going into the game how important the fires and all that stuff as a motivation, as a galvanizing force for them was. And that was huge. But now they have to go back home to potentially, who knows what kind of chaos that they're dealing with. It's horrible, but displaced families, displaced, isn't that? Go and practice for a couple of days, fly across the country.
They can practice.
If they can, that's my point. Like, it's upheaval. Like, and again, who knows? Maybe there's a galvanizing force thing that pushes them through. I think more likely that was the night for their galvanizing force, and they spend a lot of emotion in a different place and doing all this stuff. And I think it's going to be hard for them to, in 6 days at 3:00 on Sunday, get it back to where they need to be. Like, I'm going to pick the Eagles to cover. Like, I am likely going to pick the Eagles to win by like 2 touchdowns. I think they are way better and way better set up to win this.
So that's exactly where I am. And I think that what we did in 2022, and we didn't really do this.
No, we were gay. Yeah. Remember, Giant? We don't curse anymore, but we had the F out of here.
Yeah, and by the way, I feel equally as confident. About this game. I think this Rams team is better than that Giants team.
I do too.
Like, for sure.
I mean, Matthew Stafford alone again.
Yeah, and look, they have great receivers. They do have a good line. Now, that Giants team had Dexter Lawrence, but remember, who was it that came on and said he was the
Sean Morash?
Yeah, said Dexter Lawrence was the best player on the field.
Bathing himself in glory lately, anyways. And I like Sean, but
no, I like Sean too. It's just what a statement.
Let's just say he says some crazy things.
Yeah,
okay?
he
gets himself into trouble.
He's a fun Twitter follower. Yeah. But regardless, we didn't do this. But when the Giants beat the Vikings in 2022, there was a lot of, hey, you never know. The Vikings were a good team. And what happened? The Eagles just obliterated them. So, like,
ironically, the score they beat the Vikings by.
So using the fraudulent Vikings as a benchmark
for
how is not the way to go about this. So while it was an impressive win last night, just because it was a playoff win and they won by a lot, and like, I agree with you, Darnold was really bad, but let's not, like, the whole team was like, they were a complete no-show. Darnold was bad, but this, in my opinion, this wasn't like the Detroit game where he missed wide open guys. Now, he was bad where he took bad sacks.
He didn't get rid of the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
And there were spots where, like, he had guys in the flat he could have thrown to. Like, he was just, and even throwing the ball away, he's got sacked 9 times.
It's crazy, man. And some of those sacks,
were all on him. Like, there were a couple where he had no chance. I would say, like, 6 of the 9 sacks, he could have done something to avoid.
Well, and that's the thing too. So you watch a game last night and you go, and the Rams they do have good defense.
Legit.
Verse is Brandon
legit.
Fisk.
Yeah, those guys fly around. Byron Young,
he's good.
Yeah, they're good.
But here's the thing: the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. So while
it matches up really well with
the Rams were able last night to obliterate the Vikings because the Vikings offensive line couldn't handle them, and Darnold completely just
turned into a pumpkin,
right?
Yeah.
But we both agreed, and we said this yesterday. I think Jalen will be much better next week than he was last week. So when you combine, how did the Rams win that game? They won it by obliterating the Vikings offensive line, and Darnold was just awful.
And the Vikings also couldn't run the ball.
That's the other part of it.
Which I feel pretty confident.
All 3 of those things.
Actually, which is crazy considering, and I'm sure people have heard it by now, but if you don't remember, the last time the Eagles played the Rams, that was the 255-yard game for
Yeah, I think they had 316 yards rushing.
They ran all over this Rams team, like all over.
So I had it written down. Now I can't find it. But the Rams this year, I think, let up over 100 yards in a rushing, like an absurd amount of times, like 12, 13 of their 17 games they played. They have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So the fact that the Vikings couldn't run against them, to me, is not worrisome because the Eagles can run on anybody, but especially they're 26 in the league in net yards allowed per rush attempt this year. They're also 26 in the league, by the way, in net yards net yards pass attempt. Like, I agree with you because when you look at their last 5 games,
they've been much better. The
defense has played better, absolutely, and for sure. But if we want to look at the whole season, the defense has statistically been one of the worst defenses.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. I think they're better. They are a lot of young players. I think
they've gotten better. I agree.
Yeah, I think you look at the I with the defense full of young guys, and they've got like 4 rookies starting. I usually will say, all right, I'm going to look more at like what they've done lately than
that's fair
when they first started the season.
Right.
But either way, regardless of it, they're not a good defense. They're at best a average defense. Even
I agree with that. At best, they're an average. Because I do, yeah. So I would agree with that. But then also you look at their offense, And I think in the last 5 games, they've scored over, not including last night, over 20 points one time, and that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, like, their offense isn't even really clicking that well. I feel so confident about this game. I think, like, it's gonna be a party at the Linc on
I do
Sunday.
too.
I think it's gonna be the game where it's like, "Okay, here we
Let
go."
me put it this way, and I know it's a bigger line, like, and we've talked about this, and it really does, even with the way it's set up, they're both, 5.5, I think
Right.
the other's 8.5 or whatever it is. The
Oh, is that what the Washington? Well, no.
Sorry, I shouldn't have given
Nah,
a
it's
line.
fine.
My bad.
Let's do it, but I didn't know it.
But the
But
point being that we've been talking really all season, but particularly the last 2 months about like, all right, Eagles Lions NFC Championship game, like it's happening, it's
right.
fait accompli, like that's what this season is leading up to. Like it's like that's it, right? And it feels like still the same. Here's what I will say, and I know it's a longer line. I feel more confidence that the Commanders can, even though can beat the Lions than the Rams can beat the Eagles.
And if I'm the Eagles, I would much rather play the Rams than
Oh,
the Commanders.
Yeah, you would much rather, play the Rams, and you would also much rather play the Commanders than the Lions in Detroit.
Yeah. So yeah, look, if it ends up, and I feel bad for our boy Drew with the stat, but if it ends up, they go,
oh my God, can you imagine Packers,
Rams, Commanders,
all at home, obviously.
And so the other thing I've been thinking about is what if.
By the way, real quick on that, as of last night with the Vikings losing, the NFC East, the only division football with 2 teams remaining. Shout out to the NFC East.
There's also a shot the NFC North for all the like best division of football.
0 teams in the Final Four.
Could go 0-3 in the playoffs.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, because you're.
They're already 2 of them are 0-1, and now we'll see with the Lions. But
we all knew NFC East over the NFC North. We said it all
year. We said all year.
Right.
Literally everyone said. So obviously, I'm extremely confident about the game, and you are too. And so the flip side of that is, well, maybe we're overly confident.
I'm not. I feel so confident.
So, but here's what I think is worth noting: the Eagles very rarely no-show under Nick Sirianni.
I agree.
And Jalen. Like I know at the end of last year, look, they no-showed.
That was a whole lead into the no-show. That was a no-show in that playoff game. I wouldn't even call 2021 a no-show. I would just call they were just way worse.
Oh, for sure. That's not a no-show.
They no-showed last year in the playoff game, but I think that was like just, of course they did.
Yeah,
like that whole season was lost. The team was lost. Everyone hated it.
Right.
Like the Patricia thing. Like I don't blame Nick at all for it, but they did. That's the one spot they ever no-showed with Nick in a big game.
And what's crazy is I think it was like a 9-point game in the third.
Well,
I agree.
You know what's funny is honestly, I felt watching that game last night a lot like it felt like the Vikings were a lot like the Eagles in last year in that game.
Yeah.
Like that's what I felt like I was watching. Like a quarterback who the blitz just eating him up, couldn't do anything, couldn't get the ball out. Like the defense just couldn't stop them.
No one believed in them.
Yeah, it just felt like it was.
Man, it's gotta suck to be a Vikings fan.
Well, think about this. Think about this. I'm
gonna think about.
We have had the last 3 football seasons. In 2 of them, your team won 14 games and 13 games.
Crazy.
And 0 playoff wins.
It's unbelievable.
Like, think about that, man. There's that stat floating around that every time the Eagles win 13 games, or I'm sorry, is it 13 games? They go to the. I think it's 13. Every time the Eagles have won 13 or more, they've gone to the Super Bowl. Every single time. The Vikings did it twice in the last 2 years, and they won a playoff game. That's crazy.
It's got to be, as a fan, just such like a feeling of insecurity where whenever you like. And dude, we believed at the last second I jumped in, and then of course they get absolutely obliterated in the next game.
Especially because and I always debate what's worse, whether it's to be a Lions fan, just have no chance for 30 years. I'm talking prior or to be like arguably, if you want to say it's worse to be, you could be the Jets, the Lions type thing, or you could be the team that has the worst history of losing in big spots of all time. And that's the Vikings. The Vikings have lost 4 Super Bowls. They're the only team that has lost 4 Super Bowls, never won one, along with the Bills. They have lost. They have all kinds of horrible playoff losses. The Gary Anderson one in the NFC Championship game with Randall, of course, sticks out to like so many of those. Like it might be. There's an argument to be made that being a Vikings fan is the most painful fan you could be in the NFL.
So not to bring up everyone's favorite team, the Sixers, but like and you know this because we have battled about it for the last 4 years. I was much more in the camp of like, hey, they have a shot, they have a shot. Now this year, to use that Vikings Lions thing, I would rather just be the Lions with the Sixers and not even believe. And so I agree with you. Like if you're the Lions, at least you've been lovable losers. And now for what it's worth, they've won playoff games.
Yeah,
like now that they're legit, they've won playoff games. Vikings, I mean, man, that's got to be
tough.
And I'll say this too, that, the Eagles last year, people didn't have hope, but coming into this year, it was not a sure thing that the Eagles would bounce back. Like it's got to suck for Vikings fans to see your team lose like they do, bounce back and then lose again. Like, just I don't know how you believe in the Vikings moving forward.
I know.
Because they don't have a quarterback. I guess we'll see about McCarthy.
We'll see what happens. And look, I think if you're a Vikings fan, especially with how Darnold looked the last 2 games, I think it only makes what Kevin O'Connell did this year that much more impressive. I think you look at it, and we've talked about, I think Nick Sirianni should be second in coach of the year. He should be top 3, 4, whatever, no matter what. And he's way behind. He should be. But like, I actually do think Kevin O'Connell deserves to win it this year. Like, I would,
probably,
like, what a job. I mean, the guy won 14 games with and Darnold was obviously, that was the worst on. But like, what that guy must have done to prop Donald up, to hide him, to do whatever he's done all year, like, really impressive coaching job. So if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm grabbing onto that. I'm saying, well, at least I got that guy. So, and if JJ McCarthy's good, like, what could he do with that guy? It could be amazing, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, and because I was feeling a little bit like you were during the game last night, where when it was clear the Vikings were complete frauds, it's like, well, that would have been nice. But the flip side of that is if the Vikings had won that game,
well, they wouldn't be frauds.
Exactly.
No, I know, of course.
Yeah. Yep. So I just
also, by the way, real quick, like, do you ever remember watching someone lose more money in real time?
I know.
It's like, because we have these situations where, oh, that guy lost himself a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, we've had that phrase has been said so many times on Twitter, or whatever. Like, and I remember something. I don't ever remember feeling in a moment watching a game that I was watching an individual player lose more money in the moment than say. I mean, it could have cost him $100 million, $50 million, or whatever it was. Like,
honestly, probably $50 million guaranteed.
That's what I mean. Like,
because if he would have crushed this playoffs,
that's what I'm saying.
You're probably
like,
getting
we're talking a whole different stratosphere.
Yeah.
Like, I just kept thinking, like, man, like, his agent must just be like losing his mind.
Yep.
Like, anyway,
I mean,
tough beat.
Now the good news is, I bet a team like the Giants will
He'll
probably still pay
Sam
him.
Darnold's gonna make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
He did it not, but like, I mean, it was just wild to like
For
watch
sure.
this and be like, wow, the money is just being burned up as we watch. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I just to as much as you could sit there and go, could be the Vikings. Like,
You're right.
This is the matchup.
No doubt.
If we would yesterday at this
if
time,
you had asked before the playoffs,
oh my God,
before the game, we said it yesterday. We were like, oh, give me the Rams. I said I was rooting hard for the Rams.
Yeah. I can't believe it actually.
It's
happened.
crazy that it's who would have thunk when. And shout out to my Uncle Rick, who made his preseason Rams Super Bowl bet.
Oh, did he?
Like, remember that? They
a little
were like,
better than the Giants.
Plus like
divisional
odds, like
yeah.
long odds. But who'd have thunk it when they started 0-4? We were joking with Rick. We're like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
And then, even when they beat them out in LA, it was like they're kind of had a couple wins, and they weren't even like 4-6 or something, like 5-7, whatever they were at the time. Like that, I knew the NFC West was weird, and we talked all year, and we didn't. Hey, shout out to us, by the way.
Yeah,
nailed the Niners thing from the jump of the season.
Yep.
We did not believe for a second. It was like, oh, they'll come around. Nope, out on that. But I certainly did not think there was almost any chance that in the divisional round of the playoffs, the Los Angeles Rams would be coming
in here too. Obviously, we knew it'd probably be here, but
couldn't have fathomed that this is how it was going to.
The fact it's in Philly too, and that's the other part of this. The Rams are not built for this. I know they've won a Super Bowl, and you have to give them credit for that. But like, they're not built to come into Philadelphia in the cold, and it looks like it might snow. By the way, there's a 55%. Dude, if it snows,
I'm in for it.
The Eagles are going to like obliterate them. But regardless, I don't think I was wrong to call them a soft defense, but they are a finesse team.
They are a finesse team.
The Eagles
I think that's
are
a very fair
team.
point.
Yeah.
And I think your ultimate point is you're just trying to compare and contrast.
Yes.
And I think you could, without even talking about the Rams, you could just say the Eagles are a way more physical team than the Rams. Like, no matter how physical the Rams are, the Eagles are that much more.
So let's talk about the one I think maybe concern would be the second time.
So I
playing
think
a team.
I think there's, like I said, and I think it's the other two things I mentioned, because I think it's going to go the other way, and it's too much emotion. But I do think the galvanizing force of we're playing for California, we're playing for LA.
They'll have LAPD.
That is something. I'm saying you're talking about what to be concerned about. I'm saying like that is a motivating thing that who knows. That's all.
Yeah.
And then I do think you have to say Stafford and McVay are something to be concerned about. I mean, like you just said, they won a Super Bowl together. I think we all agree. McVay, one of the great offensive minds in the sport and a great coach. And
Nick
Stafford
3-0 against them.
Yeah. They own the Rams.
Yeah.
They've won 9 of the last 11 or
you
something.
You could also
like
flip that and be like,
regardless, the point, I'm not, again, I'm picking them to win by 14 or more. We'll see how it plays out. But you just said the only thing I'm worried about is the second time. I would say the only 3 things I'm worried about are second time. And even then, that doesn't, the galvanizing Los Angeles thing is the number one thing that worries me, just because it's ineffable. You can't tangibly say what it is or what it's going to mean. But again, I'm not expecting it. And then I would say Stafford and McVay just like being Hall of Fame guys and doing Hall of Fame things. But like, I agree with you. There's not that much to go and be super concerned.
Yeah, and maybe like to kind of even out the universe, tomorrow we'll do like things we're worried about.
Sure.
So it's not just
Sure.
4 days of us being like, you know, getting old takes
We're
exposed.
not gonna be,
like,
you know,
yeah. But the
well, I did already tweet that they're gonna beat them.
oh,
So,
me
you
too.
know,
And it has like 4,000 likes. So trust me, if they lose, it is
people
getting
will remember.
the 12 Ram fans out
People,
there are
do
gonna.
people really bring up your old tweets?
Yeah,
ever?
no, occasionally.
I didn't think
sometimes.
that really.
Yeah,
I've
occasionally.
never seen any of your
Every
old
once
tweets.
in a while. Yeah.
No old takes. No,
Von
I'm,
Lay,
glad- no,
nothing.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I know. Sorry, I had no idea people did
Every
that.
once in a while. But what else? The second time thing. We can talk about more tomorrow. But like, I think there is something to that.
Well, especially with McVay. If we're gonna say what a great coach McVay is, I do think you have to say like, all right, that guy's a really smart offensive mind.
Right.
Who's seen this defense? It'll be interesting to see what he does. Now, doesn't Fangio have a really good record against McVay? Or am I remembering that correctly?
I don't remember something
we
like
should
that.
look
but
into that because I do feel like there was something when they played them the first time around that was
He's 2-0 against them.
okay. I knew there was
He
something.
built the defensive game plan that the Patriots used in the
There we
Super Bowl
go.
in
Fangio did.
2018.
Okay, so I knew there was some stuff with like Fangio's got McVay's number
Right.
hanging in that. I just couldn't remember the specifics, but that's the stuff you want to hear too. You know?
Yeah. So I think that when you talk about playing a team,
By the way, that may be the greatest defensive game plan in Super Bowl history.
right?
By the way,
So it's interesting to know he built it, not Belichick.
yeah, I'm shocked.
So he did it.
That.
They did it with the Bears in like week 12 that year, and they held the Rams to like 10 points.
And
And
Belichick.
then
Belichick did the same thing.
Copied
with
it.
the Super Bowl.
That was clever. I mean, like disguising, waiting till
Yeah.
the mic cut out, all
Yep.
that stuff. It was yeah.
Well, and so that's
Fascinating. Good. Info,
that's
Tucker.
that was good info. Maybe
Well,
good job by you.
right.
Yeah.
Let's keep him around.
Take the rest of the pot off.
Exactly.
You showed up today, unlike yesterday. So.
Yeah. So you're breaking even today.
You don't come in on.
I
Elliot,
don't do Mondays.
you know who doesn't do Mondays? Elliot normally. You see him here during the playoff run. I'm just
Good
saying.
point.
You know,
Good
no
point.
big deal.
I just think the coaching matchup, like you could maybe talk yourself into it being even. I think that's probably the key in a second time. But I also think the second time, first, actually two things. One, the Eagles have shown they're very good at making a game adjustments.
No doubt.
So even if
I would say they are elite at it.
well, not the starting game's not great, but the second, third,
You
yeah,
said-
exactly.
You said in-game adjustment.
No, I know. Yeah, I agree with
It's hard to make an in-game adjustment at the start of a game.
you. Yeah, no, it was a weird joke.
I
agree.
I get
yeah.
where you're going.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. But like this game, this one's all about adjustments. So I think there, but also in a second matchup, while adjustments are part of it, normally the more you play a team, in my opinion, like it's just about who has more talent.
I generally agree.
And the Eagles just have way more talent. The Rams
Especially
have
because
talent.
It's also like I think there's something with like the second time. It's like you play teams a second time. Like that happens all the time. It's like the third time playing a team. You're like, all right,
Right.
well, that always seemed twice. Like you play all the division teams a second time. You're used to playing teams a second.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that. You know, I'm with you. It's worth noting.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It's not something that I'm like super concerned.
Yeah. Now, I guess like in an ideal world, if you could pick right now, like would you have felt better if they would have lost the first time against the Rams or won the way they did? Because the losing aspect as well, it's tough to beat a team twice.
Nah, yeah. I don't really. The tough to beat a team twice doesn't.
You don't
do it
buy
for
that?
me.
Okay.
Not
I don't know if I
really.
buy it either. I'm
It
just.
sounds like a thing that people say.
You
You
know
know, it's
what
like, oh, really tough to be. Yeah, like if they're better than you, yeah, it's tough to beat them twice because they're better than you. You know
Well,
what I mean?
you're like the cliches for a reason. This one might be a cliche for no reason.
I agree.
I'd be
yeah, it
curious to
might
know
be,
the
yeah.
actual record of.
I totally agree.
Yeah. I just think because they have so much more talent, and again, in Philly is such a difference too. Like
Massive.
not only did they obliterate them in LA it was in LA. So like now I do think the Eagles are a good dome team, as all teams are, because there's no elements. But
No, but yeah,
Now that it's
an
in Philly.
advantage here, and that's not even what we mentioned at the top. The fact that they played until whatever it was 11:30 last night. I know it's different than the West, but 11:30 here. They're playing on our time here.
right.
11:30 Monday night. They're playing
Gotta
at 3
fly
o'clock
home.
on Sunday. Man, like
Yeah.
that is such a.
The 3 o'clock time helps too.
And it didn't factor because the Eagles lost last year, but I was upset about it last year. I think it is so unfair that in
I
the
agree.
playoffs they put games on a Monday night. Like I think it's wrong. And
Or-
thank you, we'll take it this year. But it's such an advantage for the Eagles.
I agree. 100%.
Prep wise, all of it, like everything. Like
Yep.
the Eagles were able to halfway through that game last night be like, all right, we're prepping for the Rams right now. The Rams are playing a football game.
And
Like
especially
they're not even close to, you know what I mean? Like,
and you add in across country.
well, absolutely,
It's like an 8 hour, by the time you fly.
totally.
Yeah. So
And again, after who knows what's going on with like whether they can even go to their homes, whether they have to stay in hotels, whether this
Right.
that. Like there's so much going on. It just
I wonder
it
if
feels like a lot.
I wonder if they'll end up practicing here this week.
I don't know. I don't
It'd be
know
tough
enough
to
about
do,
how
yeah.
close the fires are to the
Right.
stadium and kind of where, but you would think with the air quality, like
I would
don't
think
know.
there'd be a benefit
I don't know
just
if they have
even,
a
like,
dome
getting
practice
used to
thing.
the So,
Yeah, I
well,
don't
I mean,
know.
I'm sure a lot of that will
But then
come out
again,
today.
like the creatures of habit, do you want to like fly them out,
Right.
you know? So it's again, it's a lot of tumult for the Rams right now, and the Eagles are just sitting here kind of waiting for them to come, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great spot.
I'm gonna look this up today, but I would bet Nick and Jalen as more than a 5-point favorite have a very good record.
That's a good point. Yeah,
Money
I
line
feel like they
wise.
usually
Now last
handle
year they probably
business.
got again. Last year
last year
screws
got
everything
screwed at
up.
the end. Yeah,
But I would guess when they're over a 5-point favorite, their overall outright record is pretty good.
yeah. Well, their overall outright record is
That's what I mean.
great.
So
Period.
I would
I'm
bet
sure.
there's something absurd.
Yeah.
Like,
Speaking of Jalen, real quick before we get to final thoughts, I do want to say, and I know you talked about it, but I do think, and it wasn't like we were as hard as other people on him.
we definitely were.
We were not.
Yeah.
But I do think in general, I do think that it's gone a little far with how hard people were on it.
Yes.
Like they won the freaking game. Like,
and he didn't turn it over.
Like I was looking at I used, and the camera didn't like it, but I threw Tom Brady in his first 3 Super Bowls at him. And you go back, like Tom Brady had 145 yards passing against the Rams in that first Super Bowl they won. 145 yards passing. Like, I just think like you see so much bad core. You watch Darnold, you watch Love, you watch all this stuff. Like this kid wins. He doesn't make mistakes. He gives your team a chance to win every time. Like he makes plays. Like, and he was freaking rusty. Like I expected him to be rusty.
Yeah.
And that's what we said. We basically we expected him to be rusty. He was rusty. Like it wasn't great, but he was rusty. I think that it's definitely gone way too far with the condemnation of him.
And I'm not
the guy wins.
I'm not the biggest fan of well, you guys talk, not us specifically, but the media talks about this guy differently than this guy. And you wouldn't for the most part, I find in my experience with the media members I work with, there's not like a vendetta, but I just when you look at Lamar Jackson's game, I think everyone would agree he would get an A for his game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Jalen wasn't as good as Lamar, but he certainly wasn't
I'm with you.
way worse. That's why I gave him a B on my rewatch.
Yeah, I think if in hindsight I said C minus, I would probably give him a C plus B minus, but maybe probably B minus.
Yeah,
he won.
I had B minus,
and at the end of the day, he didn't do anything to keep them from winning, and he did a few things to help them win, and ultimately,
that's a great way to put it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did a few things to help them win, and he did nothing to prevent them.
And this week, I think he'll do even more things to help them win, because I do think that was the worst performance we will see from him.
In the Carolina game, when I rewatched that game, it was time and time again, this guy is open. Why is he not throwing?
Yeah.
When I rewatched this last game, I did not.
And it's not just you. I mean, Dan Orlovsky. There are a lot of people going and look at the tape and being like, well, there just wasn't that much. It wasn't. Now, to be fair, we had Jaws on, and Jaws said there was stuff there. So it's there's always
a few, but it's not
for the most part. I think it seems like most people agree it wasn't guys running wide open everywhere that he was missing.
Yeah,
like Sam Darnold.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Let's get to final thoughts.
You can go first.
Okay, good. Yeah. Let me pull it up.
Feels like you
wasn't ready.
Had lists ready.
So I'll go with I teased yesterday. So The Longest Yard, you said the Sandler one, which I don't blame you for because that was a big hit, but the original The Longest Yard, Adam Sandler made a remake of The Longest Yard from 1974. I think it might be the best sports movie ever.
Okay.
This
is a very
discussion.
Take,
it's in the discussion. No, I've watched all the sports movies. You would watch something and not have seen all the.
Watched it.
No, but I know. But a lot of people consider it the best sports movie ever. This is not some I haven't checked in Glenn and Ray's book, but I'll bet you it's top 5 in Glenn and Ray's book. It is considered by many to be one of the great sports. I had just never gotten to it before. It should be. It's freaking amazing, and it holds up so well. Burt Reynolds, I guess former college quarterback, freaking awesome. Looks like a quarterback. Actually, looks like he knows how to play football. Ray Nitschke's in it. It is freaking awesome. Highest recommendation. I mean, the concept alone, if you saw him ceremony, what a cool idea. A pro quarterback going to jail. Can he take this team? And but yeah, I like it. It's
best ever is.
Yeah, no, I would still say I think Slapshot is still the best sports movie ever, but I would say it's top 3, maybe. It's right there, dude. It is phenomenal. And again, it's not this is many people consider it. I just had never gotten to it before. Yeah. I think it legitimately might be the best sports movie ever. It's in the discussion.
I mean, after the kneecap,
it's so much better than the Adam Sandler one. The
Adam Sandler one's a non-serious.
It is a.
So is the old Longest Yard a comedy?
Yeah,
It
it's like a dark comedy.
because
Yeah.
the Adam Sandler one is like a straight up silly
No,
comedy.
it is. This is way more like there's a
Serious.
lot more going on. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it starts with domestic violence. Like it starts with him like punching a woman, and then
So,
yeah, which is not has not aged great, but
Yeah, I would think.
it's the guy he goes to jail. Like it's all
Right.
Anyway.
All right. So I've been debating this with my friends recently. And so it's not so much a final thought as much of I want your opinion on it. I think Jim Carrey is like version 5.0 of Will Ferrell. Like I think for two guys that I think are comparable in like how people would view them, I think Jim Carrey is funnier than Will Ferrell. I think he's a way better actor than Will Ferrell. I think his movie catalog is better than Will Ferrell's. And I think he's just like the more like it's just like the better version of Will Ferrell to me.
So I definitely disagree with the way you're phrasing it. I agreed with some things along the way. I think his movie catalog is better. I think Jim Carrey's a better actor than Will Ferrell. I mean,
yes, I think
Will Ferrell
without
can't
question.
do Truman Show. Like he can't do it,
And he
doesn't have
can't
that in his
do
bag.
Man on the Moon.
Yes, he doesn't have that next
Cable
level in his
guy,
bag.
right?
But I do think, first of all, I think Will Ferrell's comedy movies are just as fun. I mean, like that, like Old School's just as funny as Dumb and Dumber. I think they're both like
Liar,
similar
Liar.
level of funny. I think Liar Liar is okay. I think it's slightly
I love
overrated.
Liar Liar.
I think Dumb and Dumber is like Carrey's like top by far of
Yeah.
the comedies. I think Truman Show's his best movie.
Truman Show's his best movie.
I think Will Ferrell is funny.
Have you seen Man on the Moon?
Yeah, of course.
I think that's a
Who are you
phenomenal
talking
movie.
to?
No, I know.
Yeah.
I just watched it recently.
I think it's okay. I'm not a
Really?
huge
I
Andy
think it's
Kaufman
awesome.
fan. Period. Like I think it's a solid movie. I thought Truman Show was way better.
I like Truman Show better too.
But I think Jim Carrey is very funny, but I think he is like, and for what it's worth, people back in the day said he used to kill in comedy clubs and he was always the funniest guy of all those. Like, I think Will Ferrell, like I've said this before, I think Will Ferrell is the best Saturday Night Live cast member ever. I think it's him and Eddie Murphy and maybe Phil Hartman.
You know more about this than me.
I think Will Ferrell,
Jimmy Fallon?
I think Jimmy Fallon's like one of the worst characters.
Oh wow, okay.
You can get through a bit
Opposite
without
end.
laughing. Like the guy
Yeah,
just
but I just feel like he was on it for I don't know. I don't know a ton about it.
I hated Fallon on Saturday Night.
All right.
But I think Will Ferrell is funnier. I think Will Ferrell is the maybe naturalist, funniest living human. Like I think Will Ferrell is about as funny as it gets.
I just think Will Ferrell has one trick in his
No, see, that's where I think you're wrong.
Yeah,
I think that's why I think he's the best Saturday Night Live character because he can do so many different things. Like I think the versatile can fit into all kinds of different roles in comedy.
Maybe
stuff.
on Saturday Night Live. I just feel like every movie I watch of his is the same thing, and Jim Carrey is funnier with more of a range, if that makes sense.
So I think Will Ferrell has more of a range. I think Jim Carrey does what he does better. Yeah. Like Jim Carrey's the kind of goofy, like the
would you say
the physical stuff? The hey, alrighty then,
dude. Yeah, Will Ferrell does a little, but not as much as Jim Carrey.
That's the point. Will Ferrell's not.
Dude, I saw a clip of Jim Carrey recently where he moved his face like he did when it was the Grinch. Have you seen this?
No, but it's wild.
It's like it almost looked. I still wonder if I was tricked.
Yeah,
but like it was unbelievable.
I think Jim Carrey's a better actor without a doubt, and I think overall you could argue more talented because he's such a great actor.
Would you say?
I think Will Ferrell's like if you said who's going to make you laugh more in just a room, I would say.
Would you say Jim Carrey's career underrated, overrated, properly rated?
Probably a little underrated.
I would think so too.
Yeah, I mean, like he had a moment like in the early '90s. Like you're too young,
dude,
but like
Ace Ventura,
dude, they were the same year. Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask were all in the same year. It was like it was like one moment he was the guy.
I remember that
he was the guy on In Living Color, and then the next moment he was the most famous person in the world, like literally.
Yep.
But I think he doesn't get enough credit for how good an actor he is. I think the Truman Shows and the Man on the Moon and those type of things, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like that type of stuff. Like he's great in this type of stuff. And
Cable Guy, I thought was a
Cable Guy. Yeah, it's an interesting movie.
It's like a different type of acting.
But I think he's a great actor. Whereas I think that I think Will Ferrell's hilarious and fine.
I just hate Elf so much. It's hard.
You don't like Will Ferrell. He's not your.
I'm not. He's not my cup.
You are much lower on Will Ferrell than most people.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
But I get where you're going. I don't hate it.
Yeah. I also love Jim Carrey.
So. I had no idea. I wouldn't have guessed if you had said
it's like the Glenn Powell,
right? If you had said like who's Elliot's favorite, like one of his favorite, I wouldn't think Jim Carrey.
He's I feel like you would say that Jim Carrey's too goofy.
Too goofy,
right?
Yes.
I don't.
You'd be like, let's take something seriously.
Which is part of me saying I don't think you'd like Will Ferrell because he's like kind of goofy.
Because Will Ferrell then doesn't really do serious stuff, whereas I think Jim Carrey
you need
has
the serious end.
Yeah. Now look, if Jim Carrey put out his stuff now, maybe I would view it differently than I did.
Right. Sure.
I was actually rewatching The Mask, which is what started all this, and that is like a pretty silly.
So I haven't watched The Mask in a while. I've rewatched Dumb and Dumber many times.
And Dumb and Dumber
holds up really.
Too.
I mean, it's dumb.
It does hold
but
up,
it's
well.
hilarious. Like it is a very funny movie.
Yeah.
So, and Ace Ventura I haven't watched in a while, but I would guess that's
also the scene in Dumb and Dumber where he's like they find all the money and they go, We'll do IOUs like, down to the penny. This is just such something I would do. Like, be like, don't worry. Yeah.
Don't worry, we got it covered.
Well, old Elliot would do it. I'm better now.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
All right.
Can't believe they got the Rams.
So excited.
I can't believe.
What a thrill.
We get it. We get a knock on wood. Cross your finger. We get another week of daily.
I know. Maybe a week leading into a home game against Washington. Who knows?
I think they'll know when they play on Sunday.
I know. Well, that's what's fun is this. We get the reverse. This week
is
we got to watch the game.
Moment. Like, can you imagine Washington win?
No.
No.
And then, well, if that happens, then the NFC Championship game would be in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
or Arizona.
Or Arizona. But point being, the Rams would be the home team. So,
right.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Not
even just remove the home part of it. Washington, Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
No.
It's gonna be Eagles Lions. It's been leading that way all year. It's the best game. Like, yeah.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow. Daily Pods. Roll on. Got the Rams, baby.
Oh wait, Tucker found the stat.
Ooh, yes.
The Eagles and Sirianni are 25-5 is 5.5 point.
Wow.
Rest of the NFL 149-51.
Okay, so teams are usually pretty good when they're. That's it. We should remember that for betting purposes.
Yeah.
Teams that big a favorite.
Are you going to tweet this out or can I tweet it out?
You can tweet it out.
Okay, love it. All right, so we'll be back tomorrow. React to everything going on. Anything to look for with practice tomorrow? It's all like okay.
We'll get to that tomorrow. Yeah.
Until then,
on the Daily Pod.